Our next performance is the Phoenix Kendo Kai's demonstration. Sugi wa Phoenix Kendo Kai ni yoru kendo desu. Kendo means sword way. It's a modern Japanese martial art form that uses bamboo and protective armor. Kendo wa ken no michi de ari kendo go to shinai o tsukata no kaku togi desu. Phoenix Kendo Kai has a dojo where you can practice with them. Phoenix Kendo Kai wa dojo ga arimasu node, kendo o rensho shite miru no wa ikaga deshoka. So please enjoy the demonstration. Soro de wa kendo o goran kudasai.
Thank you for your kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We have a demonstration of Kendo for you today. I have about 2 minutes to speak before you guys are on. Okay. Did you want to? Okay. As our kind MC told you, Kendo is Japanese sword fencing. It is one of the 9 Gendai Budo, or the modern martial arts recognized in Japan, along with Judo, Karate-do, Shoringi Kempo, Aikido, Naginata-do, Kyudo, Ju-kendo, and even Sumo. While sword play and, for example, Kyudo, Japanese archery, have their roots in Kubudo, or the older forms and the modern forms are considered distinct activities. Kendo today is an international endeavor. The Federation International of Kendo, the FIK, was founded in 1970 and presently recognizes 62 countries or regional federations. Still, Kendo in Japan has retained some of its unique cultural attributes. For example, Kendo, along with Judo, Aikido, and Naginata, are part of the high school sports curriculum, just as basketball and baseball are taught in America. And you can't see me, I am dressed today in a formal referee attire. And you might ask, well, why formal? And the answer lies in the dual nature of Kendo as a modern Budo. If you go out to the internet and watch Kendo videos from the 19th World Championship, which was held in Milan, Italy in 2024, and of course we're going to encourage you to do that, you might notice that the referees are wearing a blue sport coat and maroon tie and gray pants. And this is the Shimpan sports uniform. A Kendo referee is called a Shimpan. But Kendo is more than a sport. It is a martial art. It is Budo. So during a Budo Engi, or martial arts demonstration, such as this one, the occasion can be considered formal, and the Shimpan will be dressed in the historical appropriate regalia. In presenting the formal Kendo Engi, I am wearing a pair of court pants, which are called hakama. Over my kimono, I am wearing a court jacket called a monsuki. It is identifiable by a mon, or a family crest, which is woven or dyed into the fabric. This particular mon has a name. It is the hawk feather mon. In Japanese, this would be called the taka noha. The most famous mon in Japan is the jirogiku. It is a stylized 16-petal chrysanthemum crest, and it is used exclusively by the Japanese imperial family. Demonstrating for you today are two members of the Phoenix Kendo Kai, Higuri Sensei and Preston Wollaston Senpai. And you notice that they are also wearing hakama. However, theirs is the split leg version, which a samurai would wear if he was on horseback. Their jacket is a heavier weaved material, and it is called a Kendo keikogi, or a practice blouse. Since I will be judging a Kendo match today, you might have some questions about, well, how do you judge a Kendo match? First of all, you should probably know something about Kendo, although I have to admit that has never stopped me before. But we have 9 small demonstrations for you which explain 9 of the basic principles associated with Kendo. The first demonstration, called Ipponmei, showcases the valid strikes or the valid kihon associated with Kendo. A men or a strike to the head. A kote or a cut to the wrist. A cut to the waist. And ski, a thrust to the throat. Now, after you learn these 4 basics, one of the things you might ask is, well, what do you do with them? So, Nihonmei, or the second demonstration, we are going to present a combination called Renzoku Waza, or the continuity techniques. This is the first waza learned by all Kendo beginners. It is called a Nidan waza, or a waza that has 2 hits that are done in a combination. Sanbonmei, our third demonstration. Now, as you watch these 2 demonstrations, one of the things you might ask is, you say, hey, that guy is just opening, and no one is going to do that in competition. So you're supposed to do harai waza? Okay. So the harai waza, which is a strike to the sword to create an opening if you don't sense one. Yonhonmei. One of the things about Kendo is Kendo can be performed going backwards or forwards. So we are going to demonstrate men, subazeriai, and then hiki do, or a do that's performed while the person is stepping backwards. Gohonmei, nuki waza, men, nuki do. Now, Kendo is not just about hitting. There are some strategies involved, and one of the first strategies that you will learn is called nuki, or how to avoid getting hit. Ropponmei, the suriage waza. Suriages are sliding or deflecting wazas. So kote, suriage kote. Suriage waza is sometimes called the crescent moon waza because the shape of your sword makes while you deflect your opponent's sword. Nanahonmei, debana waza, debana kote. This is another strategy waza. It is learning to see that your opponent is ready to strike, but you strike first. Debana kote. Happonmei, men kaishi do. A kaishi waza is a waza that involves blocking the sword while it's in motion. And our final of the introductory demonstrations, Kyuhonmei, Do Uchi Otoshi Men. The Uchi Otoshi waza is a downward strike as opposed to the horizontal strike, which we saw in number 3. Now, you may notice that the Kihon, these basics that we are practicing, are being done very slowly. And one of the things about Kendo is that Kendo practice is associated with real time. So now we're going to watch a keiko, or a practice session. And the practice session I had a small box that had a red and white flag that was right here. No. Okay. But I took it out of the hand. No, we're fine. So, for example, one of the things you might notice is as we put away our boken, or the wooden swords, which are the most similar in shape to the actual katana, or the Japanese cutting sword, one of the things you will notice is part of our kendogu, or the equipment that we use for kendo practice. You've seen the keikogi and the hakama, which is our uniform. But Preston and Higuri Sensei will now be putting on bogu. And kendo bogu is armor. The various pieces of armor, for example, is the chest plate, the chest protector, and it is called the do. Kendo attacks, as you noticed from the first demonstration, are always from the waist and above. But since the waist is really close to the hip socket over here, frequently people attempt to hit the do and they miss. So without our paneled skirt, or tare, you probably might get some serious bruising on your hip bone. Okay. Would you quit telling people that? Nobody's going to want to practice kendo. There are 2 more pieces of kendo bogu. There is a protective helmet, which is called a men. There is a tenagui, which is a sweat guard, which is wrapped around the forehead. And then there are a pair of kote, which is a thumb and forefinger separated glove. Now, one of the things you might notice is that the names of the armor correspond to the names of the target that they protect. And that is, sadly or strangely, that is not a coincidence, by the way. Now, when a person is judging a kendo competition, we have 2 colored ribbons, aka, a red ribbon, and shiro, a white ribbon. During the early days of kendo, these ribbons were called tusky. But tusky has a very specific Japanese connotation. A tusky is a cord that a samurai uses to wrap his sleeves out of the way before he goes into battle. And so as kendo became more of an international sport, the name of the ribbons were called mejirushi, which simply means a marker. The corresponding item that a referee will use is a shimpanki, or a chimpan's flag. And so, for example, using the techniques that we mentioned in our Kihon demonstration, if you think you see a good point, for example, a shimpan will very carefully raise a white flag for the white opponent, and they will raise a red flag for the red marked opponent. we will open our demonstration with Kiri Kaishi, a warm-up exercise which is done at absolutely every Kendo dojo. You notice that the strikes at the head go from the center to the right and then to the left. One of the things that differentiates Kendo from some of the martial arts in which one strike, one point is the rule. One of the things you will notice is that Kendo targets are actually artificially small. The men target is actually valid only between the himo, or the strings which hold the helmet in place. The range for the kote is actually a very small, a 2-inch by 1-inch spot on the wrist above the knuckle. And the do is actually only valid here at the side and not across the front. Whichever you want. I have flags, and we have 10 minutes. I said I have flags, and we have 10 minutes. What do you want to do? Okay. So before a shiai, or before a kendo competition, practitioners will warm up with an exercise called kakari geiko, and it means free practice. There are different types of geiko, or there are different types of practices. For example, a senior practitioner can open to designate that a junior partner should be able to recognize a specific opening. There are times when both persons are working on a very specific waza. Or ippon, a practice for one perfect point. A kendo match, depending upon, or a kendo shiai, a competition, the rules or the time allotted for the match is set by the head referee. Frequently, it will be 2 to 3 minutes. When it gets to the final match between the first and second player, it frequently has unlimited overtimes. If you are wondering why it takes 5 minutes to get 1 point or to get 2 points, again, kendo is not a sport of one touch or one strike, 1 point, but there is a lot of judging criteria, and one of the things we're looking for is the different aspects that we demonstrated. Kendo is a deliberate sport, and what we mean by that is you actually hear people calling the point as they take it. This is an important consideration because, for example, if you go for a men point and the person steps back and you hit their kote, if you had called the kote, it would have been a valid point. But it is not what you intended to do because you told everybody you intended to hit the men cut. So, for example, that point will not count. Another thing which is kind of subjective is a referee is listening for a quality called appropriate power. And that is rather difficult to judge, but many years ago, prior to World War II, a lot of wrestling moves were part of kendo. And after World War II, wrestling was confined to judo, and only fencing moves were part of kendo. But for example, the appropriate power rule comes from when judo moves could be used, and that is if you threw a shinai at somebody with too much force, they would simply grab your hand and throw you into the ground. we no longer have that style of kendo, but the rule of a person should use appropriate power is still recognized. There is a school of kendo called Nito, and the Nito school recognizes that kendo matches can be fought with 2 shinai instead of just 1. One shinai is called the Ito school. The 2 shinais are actually, by regulation, slightly smaller than the 1. And what you'll notice is the usual technique of Nito is to use the smaller shinai as a shield or as an opening, a weapon for openings, and to score the point with the slightly longer sword. However, this is not required. A person can actually use either sword for the purpose of their choosing, either defensive or offensive, during a single match. Okay, men, Ari. The shimpan will call the point that he recognized a men, a kote, a do, or a ski, and the suffix ari means that it was awarded. After a kendo match or a kendo shiai is finished, the shimpan will again raise the flag for the winner, either the red flag or the white flag, and he will say shobu, and that is Japanese, meaning it has been decided. After practice, kendo practitioners will sit in seiza. They will remove their gear. Since a samurai should always take good care of his equipment, they very carefully wipe their men and then fold their tenugui to carry it off the practice court. As a person with long hair, I can tell you that periodically getting a tenugui and getting menhimo untied without causing great pain can be a challenge. And then after a kendo practice, a mokso or meditation is called for both the teachers and for the students, so that we can reflect on the things that we have learned in the particular session. And then otagaini rei, a rei to each other to thank the people that you practice with for allowing you to hit them over the head with a stick on a regular basis. This concept of reiho is very important for people practicing martial arts. We hope that you have learned a little something. And if not, don't feel bad. It's taken me over 30 years, and I still don't know everything that I should. We practice on the west side on Tuesday and Saturday, and we practice on the east side on Friday. We invite you to watch some YouTube videos, or we invite you to come to our dojo and check us out for more details. I find it to be incredibly fun. My husband and I have been doing this for somewhere around 35 years. So it has held our attention for a very long time. Thank you very much to Glendale Community College and to Hayashi Sensei for inviting us to give you this demonstration. There's many other activities coming up. I hope you enjoy this morning's festival. Thank you.
Kendo is always something I've wanted to learn. Kendo wa ichido wa yatte mita kata desu ne. Mastering its techniques and its intricacies must take years of hard dedication and training. 技を持つというは長年の訓練が必要でしょう。Phoenix Kendo Kai, thank you very much. ありがとうございました。